Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I wanted to do a video today because yesterday I made just about every mistake, every single thing that I've told you to do in these videos on my channel, and my blog, and my soft skills book. I made just about every single mistake that I possibly could have and was hypocritical and went against my own advice. And the reason why I'm telling you this, I've done some videos on failures that I've had or bad days and stuff, but the reason why I'm telling you this is because I want you to understand that you're never going to achieve perfection, that you're always going to screw up, that however far you get, you're still going to fall backwards from time to time. But what we're looking to do, what I'm looking to do, what self-development is really about is raising the average waterline mark. Where do you average out at, right? If you can raise that point, I did a video on raising your set point. Okay, you can check that out. This is a similar idea of raising your set point, but if you can raise that average of where you level out at, that's the good. So I have to pep talk myself. I have to, the other thing too with these videos, right? And what I tell you, I tell you a lot of what I'm doing, or all the reasons why I'm doing these YouTube videos is they're actually therapy for me, right? Because I am getting out these ideas. I'm talking to myself. I'm teaching myself. I'm coaching myself on areas that I need help on because I'm failing in these areas. Or maybe I'm starting to get some success in these areas. I want to reinforce that success. So that's one of the key things. And it's kind of funny because I have failed, like the last couple of weeks or so, I've produced videos that I felt were not very quality. I feel like right now, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm talking well, I'm producing a good video, I've got good content, I've got good ideas, I'm not just stumbling and mumbling around. But I haven't been able to hit that stride for a while, right? And it's been in my life, right? Like I said, yesterday, I basically hit into a tax problem, right? That discouraged me, and it ended up causing me to go into this downward spiral. I started paying too much attention to that problem. I started feeling like things were hopeless. I started to develop somewhat of a victim mentality. I started to make excuses for myself. I decided that I was going to be lazy, that I didn't want to work hard, that I just wanted to take the rest of my life off and have fun and not work hard and not shoot towards a goal, right? And not try to develop myself. And, I just started having these bad thoughts. And I started living in the future or living in the past, right? I didn't do any of the things that I tell you to do. Not only that, but I didn't go totally off the wall, but I had a bit of a problem with diet, right? With what I was supposed to eat, what I planned to eat. And I went slightly out of bounds. And then because I went slightly out of bounds, I did just like in my video on going off the rails. Although I didn't go like super crazy, but I did a video on this. I went off the rails to some degree. I made this, I'll tell you what I did, honestly, because this is kind of funny. So on Sunday or Saturday, this was Saturday, I'm supposed to eat ketogenically. So if you follow my playlist on fitness videos, if you're interested in all that and what I'm doing. But essentially, I was supposed to eat low carb, and I did. And so I ate, I went for my run, and I did this poke bowl. It's like this, like a sushi bowl. Anyway, I ate some eggs and stuff, and I wasn't supposed to do that. And so I was like, feeling guilty. So because I felt guilty, I was like, well, I'm going to bake this keto cake. So low carb, like basically like a few carb cake. And so I doubled the recipe. And I made this kind of huge cake, right? And I made almond butter frosting, again, keto, like low carbohydrate, like 1 gram of carbs using, the erythritol, sugar alcohols. And, just like, don't do this. This is not good, right? And I made this frosting and I put it on top, and then I sat and I ate this entire thing, right? I don't know how many calories it was. It was still keto, right? It was still low carbohydrates. I didn't go totally off the rails, but it was stupid, right? I was doing the stupid stuff that I tell you not to do, right? I tell you, I say, I say, don't be lazy, right? I was being lazy, okay? I say, don't stress and work too hard and and enjoy the work that you're doing. And I was hating my life and I was hating work and I didn't want to do this anymore. And I was making rash decisions, okay? I say, don't go off the rails. I was going off the rails. I say, damage control. I was not doing damage control, at least for the most part. I mean, I guess I could have gone worse, but I was not doing damage control. I was doing all of these wrong things. And then on top of that, I was thinking I'm a hypocrite and I was beating myself up for it. Another thing I tell you not to do, right? Because I had messed up and I was basically, not hitting the reset button. So it's good though, right? Because the thing is, there's always some truth in it, right? There's always some, you get depressed, you feel bad, you start to mess up, you do things, and there's a couple of things, good that I'll say out of this. One of them is that it does indicate that there is a problem. And so I've sort of identified the problem, and what it is, what I've been doing lately, one thing I've fallen into is I've redeveloped a habit of procrastination. I let that come back in. So when I'm working, I'm not working as hard as I could be, but I'm working long. And so I'm filling up my day with lots of hours, but I'm not getting done with what I want, and I'm feeling guilty about that a lot, which is making me put more hours in, which are unproductive, and it's no good because I'm not feeling rested, I'm not feeling excited about what I'm doing, and it's helping me to develop a bad attitude, right? So that's one thing. The other good thing is I realized is that my low watermark is actually a lot higher than it was, even though I was having this mess up and I was doing so bad and stuff. Even when I told you about the going off the rails with the keto cake, I did bake this cake. It was a little bit off the rails, but I was not practicing damage control, right? I was basically going off the rails, but my going off the rails, it wasn't so far anymore, even without trying. There's just a space line. I still ran my 10 miles yesterday, and even the last mile, I couldn't help it. I had to sprint it out because I had to, so all of these things, right? It shows a progress, right? And it indicated problems for me. So it's good, right? I mean, it's you want to try and do the best that you can, right? You don't want to screw up. You don't want to be a hypocrite, right? But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's not just that you're going to have bad days. It's not just that you're going to be sad some days or you're not going to feel motivated or unproductive, right? I've done videos on what to do when you don't feel motivated, right? I've addressed some of these topics in individuality, but some days it's all going to come together and you're just going to do the wrong stuff and you're just going to be a hypocrite and you're going to go against your very nature. You're going to go against the things that you preach, right? You're going to mess up just like everyone else, but that doesn't mean that you haven't progressed. It doesn't mean that you've fallen back and that you haven't made any advancements. In fact, it's going to show your advancements. In fact, it's going to help lift you to the next level because sometimes that fallback, right, it makes you realize. So I had to contemplate. Yesterday I had to think about things and I had to say, do I really believe what I say? Am I a hypocrite? Am I a phony? Am I a fraud? Am I sitting here making videos for you and it's all bullshit because I don't buy it myself and I don't follow it myself? And I had to honestly ask that question. You have to ask that question, right? And when I honestly looked at that and I said, at first I said, yeah, it's all bullshit. Fuck it, right? But then I looked at that a little bit more honestly and I said, no, that's not true because 95% of the time, I'm doing this stuff and I'm working on this stuff. And if I trip up during the day, why am I suddenly having, what's inconsistent is the one day. This day, today, right now, how I'm thinking is inconsistent. Everything else is more consistent. There's a problem here though. And what is my problem? My problem, what do I feel this way, right? What's the core kind of thing that's scratching at me? And I was able to look at and address these issues. Say, okay, well, there's an issue that is going to disappear in time that has to do with the taxes and accounting that I have to get figured out, but I will. And then there's this other issue that's surfacing that's making me feel this way. And then there's, and I figured out what these issues were. And I was able to reset. Once I knew those issues, I was able to say, okay, well, what do I want to do? I have hope now because I'm going to make some changes. I'm not going to drastically change everything and wipe everything off the board. It's still an option, and I have that option because I have that freedom, right? We always have that freedom. So I gave myself that freedom to say, you know what, if you change your mind, you don't want to do any of this stuff, you don't want to, that's totally fine. You could do that. But you don't have to. Well, you can make some changes instead and see where things go, right? And that's how it is. And I had to really come to terms with, okay, these core philosophies that you profess in life, do you still believe those things, right? Yes, I do. That's why I'm making the video today. That's why, right, when I woke up this morning, I was like, okay, I feel like I can get back on the horse. I could grow from this experience, and it's a change, right? Sometimes I've talked about metamorphoses. And sometimes these sort of falling apart and breaking things down are a change. It's a new metamorphosis. I just posted on, it was funny because I just posted on Twitter. I just posted on Twitter on Friday, the day before, right? I said that you're not burnt out, you're just molting. And if you don't continue the process, if you don't come out of your shell and continue it and push through it, you're going to be trapped in the shell of who you were, right? Just like a crab molting or an insect molting that outgrows its shell, or a snake. And that's and then I felt like I was burnt out, right, after saying that on Saturday. It just goes to show you, right, the irony of it. But when I think about that, when I say which is true, right, there's a little bit of element of truth to both. But in general, what I said on Friday, that's what I believe. And that is the truth. It's just that when you're in the crucible, when you're under the pressure, you sometimes make excuses. You sometimes feel like it's different, like you want to change your mind, like what you said before wasn't true, but you know it's true. I know it's true. I know that that is a change, that that's a process, that going through that, I am going through that molting, that it's not really a burnout. There are some indications, there are some problems, some things I need to fix, but I'm changing in a way, right? And I can see the change already because, again, I'm beating myself up a little bit because I didn't perfectly hit my diet and whatnot, but I'm looking better than I ever have. What I've blown is not so, like I have higher standards. That's what I'm saying here, is my standards are higher. Okay, I've raised my own standards. And so where I'm failing now, I would have been glad to be failing 5 years ago. It's just my standards are so much higher. So it still feels like crap. You still feel bad when you when your standards are higher, but that's the beauty of it. You got to recognize in these instances that you've raised your standards. And you're always going to fight these battles, right? I've talked about this multiple times about how you're never going to be done and you're never going to rest and you're always going to fight battles, and you will, no matter how far you advance financially, physically, spiritually, right? In your self-development, you're always going to be fighting the same battle. It's just that you're going to be fighting it in a different battleground, right? You're going to have higher standards, different standards, and when you fail there, it's still going to feel just as much like failure when you failed back then. But when you look at it, if you can objectively step back outside of yourself and look at it and say, look, you're beating yourself up because X, right? Because you're the bottom half of your six-pack is not as defined as it was a couple of days ago. That's dumb, right? Like, it's not dumb because it's important to you now, because that's the whole point of having higher standards, right? And I'm giving you a really stupid example from my own experience here, because I realize that, but it is my standard, right? It is my standard now, and so I think that's the key thing, is to realize that this stuff is going to happen. And I want to share that with you because I feel like sometimes, again, I do share my failures. I do share them, but I want you to know the depth of how I fail and how I feel about that failure, because everyone is going to go through that and everyone's going to have that problem. So anyway, I hope you liked this video. If you did, click the subscribe button. If you haven't already, you can find it down below, and you'll get, I do about 2 to 3 videos a day. So anyway, I will talk to you next time, and take care.